Howdy, everyone. Well, there it is. It is not officially on the landing gear quite yet, but I do have the landing gear on and it is bolted in place. Nothing is tight, and of course, eventually I'll have to set the tail down on the floor, but I don't have the tail wheel on quite yet, so it may stay in this configuration for a little bit without the blocking and all that. So anyway, a couple of things. This worked out okay. You can see it's a very, what do I want to say, a very homemade, home-built system here, trying to get this thing up off the ground high enough. There are many, many, many ways to do this, right? I don't have some of the specific tools needed to do this a different way. This is all that I had, was literally a car jack, 2 jack stands, and a bunch of blocks and a bunch of wood and things of that nature. So obviously it can be done. It's probably not the best way to do it, but it can be done. I've been out here, geez, I've probably been working on this now for about 3-4 hours, just really slow, really methodical, raising both the front end, as you see here. Maybe this will be a better angle. And then the back side is up on a sawhorse and some pieces of plywood. So another thing that I wanted to note is that so the original idea did work, and that was to have the legs, the wheels, the tires, the brakes, and the engine mount all as one unit, which it was. And then it was just a matter of jacking the plane up high enough so that whole assembly can be wheeled up to it and put on. And that worked out great. Once you get it up high enough, you literally just wheel the thing in place. The bolts went right in. I was more than impressed. But you want to make sure you have the plane completely off the ground. Even now, the wheels are not touching the ground. If I come over here, maybe this one will be better to look at. I don't know if this will show or not, but you can see, hopefully, that tire's not on the ground. I can rock the airplane back and forth. The airplane is basically balanced on this jack, and it's just rocking ever so slightly back and forth, and the tires touch the ground. So I know there's no weight, there's no induced loads on this engine mount, and the bolts went right in. I got all 6 of them in. I have to add some washers to a few of them because the nuts screw on too deep into the nut. These are castle nuts with cotter pins, and I need to put some washers behind the nut to bring the nut out so that the cotter pin will sit deep into the nut. So that's why I didn't want any weight on here, just so the bolts can go in really nice, and then I can spin nuts off and add washers as I needed. Once I get all the washers correct, I'm going to go ahead and tighten down all 6 bolts. Again, no load. Tighten down all 6 bolts. Verify that the cotter pin holes are nicely set in relation to the nuts, and then I can cotter pin everything. And then at that point, I'm going to remove all my cribbing. All my cribbing will come out and it will be on the main gear. I'll probably leave the tail up for now because I got to figure out what I'm going to do with the tail wheel. I just have to do some painting and assembly because I got an aftermarket tail wheel stuff, which will be in another video. Once I get that done, then I can put that assembly on the airplane and then set the tail down. But I'm excited. I'm really tired. I've been out here in the shop, like I said. I did these hinges. I don't know if I videotaped the final product, but here are the side hinges for the cowling. This one I had already done a few days ago, but I did this one this morning, this hinge here. And then after I got that done, I went right to this, and this has been a chore. You know, these are concrete blocks. I had to bring these in from outside, and it's exhausting, but it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed the crap out of it. It's a huge milestone, as most of you know. Getting the plane on the gear for the first time is kind of a big deal. But quite frankly, I'm ready to I'm ready to get this bolted, get this stuff out of the way and have it sit down. And then I can, I can go eat, I can shower, it'd be great. So let me get moving on this stuff, on those bolts, and I will talk to you guys later. Howdy, everyone. All right, so let me think here real quick. Actually, I should have thought before I turned the camera on. Where did I leave off on my last video? So I think my last video I was just talking about basically wrapping up the landing gear, getting it on, getting the engine mounted, things of that nature. So you can see now that I got all the cribbing removed from underneath, and it is actually sitting now on the main gear. It is not on the tail yet. The tail is still up on a sawhorse, which you can see in the back there. I'm working on that currently. I'm trying to get the tail spring. Some people call it the stinger. I'm trying to get that rod painted. Once I have that painted, I can assemble the tail wheel. I've got some aftermarket parts. I've got an aftermarket fork. I'm not using the chains that connect to the tail wheel. I'm using it's called a tail link. I'm using that. So a couple of aftermarket parts I have to assemble once the spring itself is painted. So I'm working on that now. But this is the main gear installed. No big deal. Like I said, you saw that I had it raised up, and I was able to wheel this whole assembly up to the firewall, put the bolts in. That went very well. I had to gently tap the bolts in. A couple, I think it was this one. No, it was this one. This top right one slid right in. The other ones went in about halfway or so, and then I had to gently tap them all the way through. No big deal. Worked out really well. And then, of course, these get fitted with castle nuts and cotter pins. You want to use appropriate washers so that the cotter pin will nest nice and deep into the castle nut. If these washers weren't here, this nut would tighten up back further, and then this cotter pin would just barely, if at all, catch inside of the recess. So you want to put your washers on to bring the nut out so the cotter pin will sit nice and deep into the cutout. So, you know, like this one here only has a single washer. This one has 2 washers, things of that nature. Pay attention to your bolt length. The bottom corners, this corner and the other bottom corner, those bolts are longer. And then these 2 bolts here and the 2 top bolts are all the same, but shorter than the bottom corner, than the 2 bottom corners. So that's about it for the main gear as far as installation goes. I did get my hinges in. I got those installed and riveted. And then the other half, this is the half that will mate with the cowling. That's just in here temporarily so I don't misplace it so it won't get bent. I haven't cut my hinge pins yet. The hinge pins, so Vans, the hinges from Vans, right? They send them with hinge pins. They come with aluminum hinge pins. Vans also included some other hinge pins, and according to the instructions, they're supposed to be stainless. Well, some of the smaller diameter ones were not. They were just steel. And the couple that were supposed to be stainless kind of sort of looked like they were stainless, but they were slightly magnetic. Now, there are stainless steels that are slightly magnetic, so it's very possible that those hinge pins from Vans were stainless. But I wasn't sure what they were. They weren't labeled. They had no markings on them. So these pins, these are a welding rod. This is 304 stainless steel welding rod, and this is completely non-magnetic. I like that better, just personal choice. So, and I've got some other welding rod, different diameters that I'll be using, which is either 304 or 308 stainless steel. But these are non-magnetic, which It's just personal preference. When I'm using stainless steel and I want them to remain non-corrosive, I prefer the non-magnetic a little bit better. Something along the lines of 304 or 316 stainless. So the other excitement, if you will, is that I was able to get the brake line in place. This is the left main brake line. This is already complete, obviously, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview on this, and I'll go step by step when I do the other one. So the penetration is on the left side of the firewall for both sides. So this is the left brake line here, and this is for the right here. The left is easy because you just come out of the fitting, down the leg, around and into the brake caliper. The right side is going to be a little bit more involved just because I have to come from the fitting and then I have to figure out how to run it across the firewall and then down the leg here. But like I said, it's very simple. I pretty much followed the van's plans to the T. I'm using the included very soft 1/4 inch brake line supplied with the kit. I'm using, instead of using, they recommend, one of the recommendations is to use some Tygon type tubing and split it and then put that around your tube. But I just decided, I just use small strips of, I actually use Gorilla Tape, but it's basically just duct tape. But the Gorilla Tape is a little bit more aggressive with its adhesive. So I just cut strips of that and wrapped it around for a spacer to space the tube up off of the leg. And then I used a 1/2 inch wide electrical tape to hold everything in place. And that's pretty much what the instructions recommend, is electrical tape. I thought about using tie wraps, but I like having something that actually sticks to the leg because these legs are slightly tapered as you go down. And I doubt it, but I guess there's a chance if you use tie wraps that over time they could work their way down the leg and fall. Because like I said, this is tapered all the way down. So if they loosen up, they're just going to drop. Of course, you'll never know that if you have your fairings in place. So I just follow the instructions. What I keep wanting to call it, Gorilla Tape, but that's just the brand name. The duct tape wrapped around the line itself, and then the whole thing is held in place with 1/2 inch electrical tape. And then down here, just like shown in the plans, I did a loop around the axle and then directly into the fitting. And I'll go into the details here when I start on the other side. But it's tedious, but it works, I suppose. The brake caliper still works just fine. And you want to keep everything tight in this way, because if you can imagine, the wheel fairing will sit across this bracket. So if you have anything sticking out far enough past the bracket, your wheel fairing won't fit. So you want to keep this kind of tucked in a little bit. So that's the overview for the left leg. As I start, I'm going to start here momentarily on the right side brake line, and I'll walk through that one step by step as I do it. All right, so that's it for now. As always, I appreciate you guys stopping in, taking the time to check out my channel and check out these videos. I know they're quite dry at times and probably not the most entertaining videos on YouTube, but I appreciate it. Thanks for stopping in. I'll talk to you guys here shortly.